My job as designer is to read the play and think visually of images of telling the story visually to the audience. And so I would never challenge or question the order in which Tanika would want the play to run. That's a given. I come up from a training which is that the text is all. Everything comes from the text. Which was then I take that and then working with Emma, who's not of that mind. She's much more visceral and she's much more in the room and making it happen. I think I can then bring the structure of what Tanika's written, make a playground in which Emma can play with it, and just as much as I can serve the text. Particularly when I read a script, what happens in my process is that I get pictures in my head of what it could be, and then that process is taken through to a director, and through talking and through sharing reference and sharing images, we kind of come to an agreement about the kind of show it might be, which is very influenced by each individual director's way of doing theatre. Emma has a very particular way of making and presenting theatre. And so, the production I came up with for The Empress with Emma is a very particular and different production that I might do with another director. The change of location, again, taken from the script, meant that we couldn't do and didn't want to do massive big scene changes. There were jump cuts. We were in one place, we were in another place. We had split screens. We had Queen Victoria in one area. We needed an area where she could be while we watched something else happen in another part of the stage. And so, so the script absolutely dictates the way in which theatrically you might present it. It's not, here we are in the palace, huge scene change. Here we are on a boat. Some of the things happen simultaneously, and what that does is it kind of compresses the drama and it makes it a much more visually interesting thing to see.
The whole production was completely surpassed my ideas in my script, because you write these words down. I never imagine what it's going to look like, because that's not the way I think. But the actual production, of the Emma and Lez did together was just extraordinary, including the elephant, the back projection of the elephant, and the boats in the water, the whole idea of the water. Because for me, it was like Les said, I had written a play which was about a bunch of people arriving in Britain, and you've got to remember that Britain is an island, and so to go from there to then, for Les and Emma to come up with this idea of it being all surrounded by water was extraordinary, because there is a lot of action by the docks, aren't there? Rani arrives there. She also leaves her baby there, which is where she meets Feroza, and they all get back on the boat at the end. So it's sort of, when you talk about it like that, you realise, oh, that's obvious, isn't it? But it wasn't obvious to me, and what they did at the Swan was just, I was blown away by it. But also the idea that it starts on a boat and ends on a boat gives me a visual language in which to present the piece, given that we knew it was going to be a bunch of actors playing many different roles with many different scenes in many different locations, and we had to find a theatrical way of reinventing that, using rigging, using sails, suddenly that came from the script, and it meant that we could use it visually to present the story. The elements were really, it was water, it was a planked island in the middle, and the Swan space is quite particular. Lots of people love the Swan. I find it a really difficult space because it's a very, very, very long thrust with a tiny area at the back in which you can actually achieve anything visual, because anything downstage of the setting line really does get in the way of somebody. It's always in the way of some member of the audience, because you've got an audience on three sides. And so all I could think to do in the Swan, because it seems to be one of the strongest positions in the Swan, is to build a bridge that joined the two sides of the auditorium together, and have an area that was above the action that could happen below. It seemed necessary. We needed to make a court. We needed to make
to make the different houses, the different places, and so it seemed to be good to have a different space. And also, having done that, it was great to be able to echo that bridge in the auditorium by having the sitar player as a kind of queen, a goddess, kind of sat there in sari with the sitar, with the cushions and stuff. And we benefited enormously from the fact that this was not running in rep. This was not a show that had to come down every day. And when you do that in the Swan, you have to have, it's all going to go up in an hour. We did a long run. We did a sit-down run, so we could flood the stage. We could have the sitar player in the auditorium. We could string things around the auditorium and dress the auditorium with ropes and sails and stuff to make it feel like more of an event, so that when the audience came in, they kind of feel they're part of a theatrical event, as opposed to something being presented, behind something for them. It was great to kind of include them. And I think it did feel like that. It felt like, when people splashed on the water or they ran across the thing, it really did include the audience in the whole evening.
And the actors all jumped in as well, in terms of, I think Queen Victoria was like,
they were pulling
a rope on the side and pulling up a flag, and then there was bunting as well. And I think that what you were talking about, the sort of planks of the boat also very easily kind of transformed into the where Lascar Sally had her kind of really quite seedy place, which is like, you could imagine there was sawdust on the floor, and all the Lascars danced around. And then of course there were puppets as well, weren't there?
There were puppets.
There were I think the children. Which is, we couldn't have children in the play for like one scene. So wonderful puppets came in, which were literally just coat hangers with children's outfits.
With outfits on that they moved, and bonnets.
Yeah, bonnets, that's right, yeah.